evening and welcome to another edition of the Daily Deuce. I'm Gary Graves from just outside cold, frosty Louisville, Kentucky, and in Maryland where it may be the same temperature. John Webster, how you doing today, John?
Gary, I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good, and it's a rough one here today. It's rainy and it's cold, But hey, it is what it is. It is what it is.
Yeah. Well,
Hey,
fortunately, we have sports to keep us warm and keep us off of some of the day's events. We're gonna talk about the Super Bowl. I mean, we had two really good conference title games on Sunday. Well, one good conference title game, but it depends on who you root for. And before I go any farther, John, we were both half right on that. I had Cincy in the AFC. You had Frisco in the NFC. So, we're going to split the difference, but this has the potential to be a great game. But before we go any farther, let's say hello and give honor and glory to our traffic cop, the guy who keeps us honest, Mr. John Pitt. John, how you doing, man?
Doing good. Apologies for being late. I was watching the my Inter Milan in the Coppa Italia semifinal, trying to take my mind off of American football.
Yeah, I was gonna watch that, but I said, yeah, if I got into that, I probably would have gotten distracted away from this. So I understand why you're late.
hey, John, if it helps you any, congratulations. It looks like you're getting a new coordinator for the offense. Kellen Moore just got signed by the Chargers.
Yeah, but now Mike McCarthy's calling the play, so no thanks. I'm not going to accept that.
It wouldn't be the first time he's done this. He did it in Green Bay.
Yeah, he had Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. Okay,
You're done with Dak, aren't you?
done with that. That's
Hey, see if we can get a poster for that. Done with
it.
that.
There you go.
Man, when Pitt is done, he really sounds done. I mean, he might feel differently after a month. He's had a chance to calm down and look at things realistically. But who
Hey Gary,
knows?
hey Gary, can I tell you something?
What's that?
I've known Pitt a little bit longer than you.
Hmm.
No, he won't. He'll still. Matter of fact, a month from now, he may be even more bitter.
I, I give him one more year, man. That's the whole thing. I give him one more year. And if they give him another receiver, who knows? We could be talking about them in the Super Bowl a year from now.
Okay, now we've gone to bedtime stories and fairy tales. Okay, let's bring it back to reality. Bring it back to
Yeah,
reality.
yeah. You can't create a unicorn overnight. Let's face it.
Speaking of Super Bowl,
Yeah, yeah. Well, in
Thank you for the segue.
you're
yeah,
welcome. You're very welcome.
yeah. In another week and a half, we're going to be looking forward to Super Bowl 57 between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs, two teams that basically proved themselves as the best in their league in their conferences all season long. Give or take a couple of games here and there. I'm not quite ready to call it a dream matchup, but it is going to be a historic one where we've got two starting quarterbacks in Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes, who's going for his second Super Bowl title. And I believe this is Kansas City's third appearance in 4 years. They've I look at this, John, two ways. There's a part of me that wants to root for Patrick Mahomes because that window for winning a Super Bowl is very small for any team to make 3 and 4 years. That's a burgeoning dynasty. I'm one who likes to see dynasties fulfilled, even though I'm not a Kansas City fan. On the other hand, I'm a Jalen Hurts fan because I feel like he's playing. He got drafted by the right team. I think some of his luster was dampened a little bit because of how things ended at Alabama. He ended up having to transfer to Oklahoma, and was still a solid quarterback, but he still has his doubters because of what happened in that title game against Georgia, and a game that, of course, made Tua Tagovailoa a star and an NFL quarterback in his own right. But either way, I think whoever wins this game will really, I hope, put to bed this whole notion about black quarterbacks and that they can get it done. And in the case of Patrick Mahomes, if he wins, establish a dynasty. Because again, that window to try to get one title is very, very narrow. And here he is playing in his third title game in 4 years.
Well, you said a whole lot there, Gary. You made some very good points. As far as the black quarterback and being able to get it done, for me at least, that was proven and solved in 1988 when Doug Williams led the then Washington Redskins to a Super Bowl. And if I'm not mistaken, he was the first black quarterback to win a Super Bowl. And I look at Jalen Hurts, and I think, in my opinion, going to Oklahoma helped him. Yes, it was rough how it ended for him at Alabama. But the thing that I give him a lot of credit for is the class and the way he handles everything. Classy guy. That night, I'll never forget when they beat Georgia and Tua came in the game and rallied them in the second half. He was Tua's biggest cheerleader. He was the biggest supporter. He was in every huddle. He was in every timeout. He was on the headset listening to the coordinators call the plays. That's Jalen Hurts, a classy guy who gets the job done. He went over to Oklahoma and played with Lincoln Riley. And we all know the success Lincoln Riley's had with quarterbacks. I mean, you look at Jalen Hurts, you look at Kyler Murray, you look at Baker Mayfield. He's had success. Now at USC, he's got Caleb Williams. He knows quarterbacks, and he helped Hurts get to the next level. Hurts is a very important cog to the Eagles. He is their most valuable player, without a doubt. When he was injured with the shoulder injury, and what's my man's name? Minju.
Yeah.
Gardner
Gardner
Minshew.
Minshew. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he played, but you could tell the distinct difference in the offense when he was playing. Hurts plays, and it's a totally different team. I looked at Hurts on Sunday. He's just a leader. He just leads, and he's very humble. He doesn't say a lot, but he just gets the job done. And I'm like you, Gary. I'm happy for the kid. I want to see him. Now, who do I think will win? That's another story that we'll have to talk about a little later. On that Kansas City side, what do you say about a quarterback playing on a high ankle sprain, missing his 3 top receivers? What do you say? And they still get it done. Yeah. They still get it done. And then on 17 seconds left in the game, we definitely going to overtime. He scrambles to get a first down and then got an extra 15 yards because the Cincinnati Bengals pushed him in the out of bounds area.
Yeah.
It's going to be a really great game. Eagles against the Chiefs. I'm excited. Andy Reid's facing his former team. Oh, this is going to be great. And I think it's going to be high scoring, Gary. I think you're going to see a track meet, man. I think you're going to see a track meet.
I hope you see a track meet because, of course, on the biggest stage, I think you want to see that kind of exciting game. I'm not going to tip my hand about my pick, but the one thing I do like from Philadelphia's standpoint is both of their playoff wins were dominant. I mean, they put both of those games out of reach, pretty steadily. I mean, more quickly against the Giants than the 49ers, but it was a very steady performance. I guess if we look back on those games now, that San Francisco's chances were pretty much done when 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 the quarterback got hurt, when he hurt his elbow, he had to go out and then come back, and by then things were out of basically we're out of reach at that point. But a lot of that has to do with what Philly did as opposed to what San Francisco didn't do. And I think their dominance in both of those games, I think, kind of establishes them as something as an early favorite, probably among among the odds makers. I haven't seen a line yet. John Pitt, what do you know about that? Oh, John.
John,
Okay.
he's not going to share that information because that means he would have to share the winnings with you. So he's not going to share that with you.
No, well, we could talk about that because we both like to like to play online a little bit, but the thing that you said about Patrick Mahomes and not having his receivers playing on a high ankle sprain, which I guess if you played any kind of team sport and you've had a high ankle sprain, I mean, John, you with basketball, me with football, and heck, I mean, both of us have played baseball to some extent. That is not an easy injury, and that's one that for Patrick Mahomes probably won't heal until well after the Super Bowl because it's just one of those really freak injuries. And you see him hobbling after some plays. You see him getting twisted up, and when he was being sacked, and you just kind of winced and just hoped that he didn't get hurt. For him to deliver that kind of performance, that kind of resilience, and that's the word that really comes to mind. But to really deliver that kind of performance, especially on that run, that first down run, we can argue about whether they would have gotten in the field goal range with or without that penalty. But once that was called, I knew that game was over. There was just no way. I mean, when you get an extra 15 yards, you get that close, and while it wasn't a chip shot by any means, that it just put them right where they needed to be. And it's like you kick the field goal and go home. But I was really, really impressed with Mahomes's resilience and his determination, and really just kind of sticking it out. Now, as we speak, he's probably got it either iced up or wrapped up or propped up or something, trying to rest. And now he can think about possibly being healthier in time for the Super Bowl. Same for Jalen Hurts, who nursed some late season injuries as well. He's not 100% either, but he's got a week to rest, and he's got 2 good games under his belt to feel good about, in spite of his own little bumps and bruises. And like you said, it could very well be a high scoring game. I hope Mahomes gets his receivers back, and that Kansas City is really whole and at full strength on both sides of the ball.
It's going to be interesting. I know with the one thing I look at with the Eagles, they played in 2 blowout games. They haven't had a close game in the playoffs. I don't know if that's going to have an effect on them if the game is close, but we'll see what's going to happen. I'm looking forward to the game, and I'm looking forward to, like I said, a track meet. So we'll see how it's going to play out.
Yeah. But looking back on those conference title games, John, I think, we talked about it just now a little bit with Philadelphia, how dominant they were in that. I think the game, though, with between Kansas City and Cincinnati was intriguing in so many ways. And again, I had picked Cincinnati because I just thought, they had beaten them 3 straight times. They didn't seem to be afraid to go out there. There was some trash talk between the players and even Cincinnati's mayors, and of course Kelsey had the answer for that in calling him, well, I can't really repeat that word. This is a family show. But the thing about that, I think Cincinnati's standpoint, they didn't look great, but they were right there. Cincinnati probably, I think if if they had another possession, if there was more time in another possession, it wouldn't have shocked me that they would have tried to kick a field goal as well. I thought that game really was headed for overtime before that run and the penalty. The thing about it from Kansas City is that Kansas City, showed its mettle at home. They never trailed, but they were never really in control, and it took a couple of factors to really help get them in position. The question now is that something to be concerned about heading into the Super Bowl, that for all those weapons that we've talked about, for everything we've said about Patrick Mahomes, that they're still having to really gut out games?
No, I think you're going to have to gut out games no matter what. And Cincinnati they are a true rough team to play. They can get you running and they can get you passing, and their defense is very strong. I mean, think about it. You got Jamar Chase on one side, and then you got Higgins on the other side. Choose your poison. In the backfield, you give it either to Mixon or P. Ryan.
Yeah.
Choose your poison. So, and then you got Joe Burrow, who, in my opinion, is one of the top quarterbacks in NFL. So I think, you got to give credit to Kansas City.
Oh, yeah.
Cincinnati is a team that is never going to go away. They're going to play you to the bitter end, and they're going to get you. And I also believe in Mahomes' mind, did not want to go to overtime because you don't know who's going to win the coin toss. And if it had been Cincinnati, like you're saying, they just need one more possession. And they played a better second half than Kansas City did. When you think about it, was it 13-3 at halftime? And 13-3.
Yeah.
And it was 20-20. So they outscored them, what was that, 17-7 in the second half?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the thing about Cincinnati, I mean, from Kansas City standpoint, that I think to really beat Cincinnati, you got to beat Cincinnati. You cannot let them hang around, because all it takes for them is just like that, again, that one drive where they feel like, okay, we're even. Now it's time for us to go ahead. They didn't get there, but again, they kept Kansas City on their toes, and credit the Chiefs for responding in the clutch. Because even before that run, you think about some of the plays. You think about like the one go-ahead touchdown. Which again, that's what you give him credit for. That's why he is considered the benchmark now in the NFL when it comes to quarterbacks. No offense to TB12, who again was that guy before Mahomes. But looking ahead to next year, I'm really scared of the Cincinnati Bengals if I'm another team, because if they can keep that nucleus together, through free agency, through the draft or whatever, if they can keep that same core group, they might be the favorites next year. No matter who wins the Super Bowl, they might be. Well, at the very least, I think they'll be the AFC favorites, because they were just right there. They came in with 10 straight wins and looked like the team that all they needed was an opening. They didn't seize it, and mainly they didn't seize it because they got off to such a bad start. And again, you think about what might have been in that game. I'm not going to get into it right now about penalties and officiating, because that could trigger one or both of us, or even a Pitt, who's listening in, that without those 3 sacks, where they had to really change their game up, without those 3 sacks, I feel like that's the thing that really made it harder for Cincinnati, where they had to just really scratch and claw the whole game instead of play their usually smooth game with Burrow in the pocket and handing off to 2 strong backs.
And you look at Cincinnati, You said they're going to be a team to be dealt with in the future. One of the things they're going to have to deal with is free agency. They got a few players that are up for free agency. They're going to have to figure some things out.
Yeah.
Next year, you said they may be the one to be favored in the AFC. Got to respectfully disagree with you. It'll still be Kansas City. It'll still be Kansas City because as long as they got that guy number 15, Mahomes, and the other guy over there, Andy Reid, they're always going to be looked upon as the number one team to be in that AFC and the best chance to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah. But again, 2 words, free agency. That's the thing. No matter what happens, when you're the top team like that, you've got to start paying. You got to pay guys, and that's where the challenge is for again, a lot of Super Bowl champions. Now, having said that, they are in their 3rd Super Bowl, which means which shows they've been able to keep their nucleus together. And of course, if they can do it for this long, you're right. As long as those 2 factors are there, Reid and Mahomes, yeah, they probably should be the favorite. I'm just telling you how sports writers are, where we're looking for that next new shiny object, and it's Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals.
You mentioned, how Kansas City has kept it going and going to face free agency. Kansas City has already faced some things already. And you look at it, they just took another piece and put it in. Tyreek Hill is in Miami now. What do they come with? Pacheco. Yeah. Smith-Schuster. Wide receiver was with Pittsburgh last year. They plug him in, and it makes you realize. It makes people realize, or I shouldn't say realize, it makes people ask, is it the players or is it the system? Because every time he loses a player, he plugs in. I can go all the way back when they first started with Tyreek Hill and Kareem Hunt. You remember Kareem Hunt was the talk of the league at first, Gary.
Yep, I remember.
And you barely hear about him now, Yeah. So, remember the old commercial? Is it live or is it Memorex? That's what you have here with Andy Reid.
Yeah. Well, he has created a great system. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I mean, he has created a great system, but I think the other thing you credit Casey for is having that scouting department, that front office that finds players. They didn't just find players to plug into the system. They found good players. It reminds me of one Bobby Beathard, that you could say whatever about Joe Gibbs and his system, but he went out and found the right quarterback at the right time. He found the right running back or the right receivers or really the right defenders for every one of those Super Bowls. So yeah, I'm just going to say in Kansas City's case, it's probably a combination. I think it, you can't argue with anything that Andy Reid has done. But I think you got to credit their front office for also finding the kind of talent that not just fits their system, but just is talented in their own right. Because Smith-Schuster, every time I see him in a KC uniform, I'm thinking, how in the world did they get him? How in the world you think about where Pittsburgh could be if they still had him? That's maybe a bigger question. That just shows how good he is.
Yeah, and also, again, it's a system. I think right now, with what Kansas City's doing with a system, Smith-Schuster fits better in Kansas City than he would have at Pittsburgh. I don't think he would be doing the same thing right now in Pittsburgh that he's doing in Kansas City. But hey,
no. And don't forget Kelsey for KC. That he is an X factor. He is a factor, but he can also be an X factor just because he just comes up with he just comes up with catches. It's like it's kind of like Gronk and Brady, back in the day. So not too long ago. So
yep. Totally agree.
Yeah. We've already discussed Philly and San Francisco. Again, when Brock Purdy went out, that pretty much changed their fortunes. The thing with Philly, I think I just hope that they didn't shoot their full what is that? Hmm. I
You're
hope
just
they
hoping they
shoot
didn't play their best game against
right.
San Francisco
They're
and left
full
it there.
clip. That's the word. I hope that they didn't empty their clip in that title game, because they're gonna have to pour on a lot of points against Kansas City.
We'll
That's all I
see.
can
I
really say
mean,
about that.
yeah, and it's not much to say about San Francisco and Philadelphia. That was over in the first quarter. So,
Yeah.
moving on.
Yeah. Yeah, let's talk about teams that hope to be in the mix next year. The Denver Broncos have hired Sean Payton, former Saints coach Sean Payton, to be their head coach. The Houston Texans, hopefully they're not playing rent-a-coach for one more year. They're bringing in D'Amico Ryans to take over for Lovie Smith. Obviously, bringing in Sean Payton for the Broncos with Russell Wilson as quarterback, that's a huge move for the Broncos. I think that's going to pay off. That's going to pay immediate dividends for the Broncos and for Russell Wilson. What do you think, John?
The Broncos situation is very interesting. They're back with Sean Payton. In the beginning, they were talking to Sean Payton. It wasn't working out. They made a trip to Ann Arbor, Michigan, to talk to my man, Coach Kaki, after he had said he was staying at Michigan. That's another story for another day, but he's still staying. And now they have Sean Payton. I think I think Sean Payton's a very good coach. Let me start there. I think he will find success. The question is going to be, is he going to find success with this team by using Russell Wilson? That's the question. And I think, in my opinion, Russell Wilson could maybe find a fountain of youth with Sean Payton and get his career revitalized. He's about the same size as Drew Brees, and Sean Payton has a way of taking advantage of your strengths and not concentrating on your weaknesses. And I think we'll be able to see that next year with Russell Wilson. I think Denver they're going to be somebody to be reckoned with. It won't be just Kansas City anymore. It'll be Kansas City and Denver fighting in that AFC West. Denver is going to be coming next year.
Don't forget San Diego.
Hey, Gary, I'm going to say this to you now. And I don't mean no harm. But as long as Brandon Staley is coaching San Diego or Los Angeles or whatever you want to call them.
Oops, I'm sorry. Ooh.
Man,
I can't believe I said San Diego. Old
as
habits
long
die
as
hard.
he's coaching them, they are not. He's too much of a gambler. 4th and 2 at your own 25 is the first quarter. I'm going for it. 3rd and 1 at the 1 yard line. I'm passing. You're down by 1 and you go up on a touchdown. We're going for 2. No, and my loving son Dante will say I'm just a old grumpy old man. I don't understand the new style of football with analytics and all that kind of stuff. But he's never. I can never see him being somebody that will be a formidable foe and in contention for the West title. Not the way he plays. No. Mm-mm.
Good point. Very good point. I think a lot of it is. I think they're going to still be a factor in spite of their coach, just because they've got their quarterback. They've got a lot working for them on both sides of the ball, and at some point, I don't want to say that they're going to tune him out or anything else like that, but I do think that team has enough talent to be a factor in that division. Now,
they got the talent, Gary, but they'll always win 9 or 10. They're never going to win 12.
No,
they're going to win 10.
No.
They may win 11, but they're never going to get to the big
division. If Peyton has an immediate effect on Russell Wilson and the Broncos, that could be a division where they cannibalize each other. It could go back to being the old ways of the AFC West, like it was much, when the Raiders, were fighting. And I'm talking, oh gosh, I'm going back to, the Hank Stram, John Madden days. As for the Fountain of Youth, I think that ship has sailed with Russell Wilson. he's at a point in his career where he has to reinvent himself because he fell off the map this year, and I think he's got to look in the mirror and say, I didn't, there were some things if I had to do over again, like get together with my receivers and get on the same page, that's what he should have done in the offseason instead of thinking he could come right in there and it's like, oh, I'm Russell Wilson. I can hit these guys because the team he left behind in Seattle, they basically did not miss a beat with Geno Smith, and nobody, you and I and John Pitt, we'd be lying if we said we would have predicted that would have happened in Seattle with Geno Smith.
Yeah, it was a different thing in Seattle without Russell Wilson. So, and then let's just really talk really quick before we have to wrap it up. DeMeco Ryans getting the job with the Houston Texans. Congratulations to him. Another defensive coordinator leaving the 49ers for a head coaching job. First Robert Saleh, now DeMeco Ryans. I wish him nothing but the best with the Texans.
Yeah. And all I'm going to say on that is Houston, let him do his daggone job, period. Give him one more year. Let him make an impact as opposed to playing rent-a-coach. And that's all I got. And that's all we've got for this week, folks. Next week, we are going to look at the Super Bowl. We're going to probably talk a little bit about college basketball because, of course, with so much to talk about with football, we didn't even get into that. Come back and see us next week. Watch the Pro Bowl if you must. Watch plenty of soccer. I mean, there's so much to watch in sports, but come back and see us. Look at us on Facebook. Look at us on YouTube. John, take us out of here.
Hey, another great show. Love talking sports. You all this week, like we always say, go check out a game. Have a good time. We'll see you next week.